about. Moving on. Women in the vote, how did they get it? Well, the work that they did during World War I meant they were given, they sort of gained the respect. If they can do the work of a man, sure they could actually have a vote like a man. The suffragists, not the suffragette, the suffragists, peaceful campaign, i.e. petition, letters, etc., won public support. It was quite persuasive. People thought they were respectable women and that they should be given the vote. The suffragettes, they called a truce for the war and said that all the suffragettes should support Britain in fighting the war, so women should go and play their duty, their role sort of thing, and again that gained respect. And also the militant actions of the suffragettes did actually raise public awareness. So it got them in the paper, it got the issue to the forefront of, or you know, up there in the political agenda, if not maybe at the forefront because of World War I and earlier on the Irish question, but certainly it raised public awareness. So the railways and the supply of food. How did the railways improve the supply of food? Well, fresh fruit and vegetables could be delivered to people who lived in areas where there was no market, i.e. no wee town market where you could buy your food. Farmers could get animals to the market towns more easily. Instead of having to take days to walk in, they could now just be put on the train and taken there. And fresh fish could be delivered inland. Instead of having to live in a port or very close to a port to get your fish fresh, you could have it delivered inland, or it could be delivered inland by train. So how did tenement housing contribute to ill health? Well, there's lots of stuff we'll go into here, but I'll just go through two. Overcrowding tenements meant disease spread easily, and tenements were built close to each other, which blocked out light, and children get less vitamin D as a result of this, which has caused rickets. There's loads of other stuff you can talk about there. You've got sewers, the Gardaí Loon, etc., etc., but there's just a couple of things. Right, the defence of the Realm Act, how did that affect the lives of civilians? Well, there was anti-German propaganda. The Ministry of Munitions organised. It had the power to buy places, etc., take over factories, so they could make sure they definitely had enough munitions. They had recruitment propaganda, where people, as we've looked at before, there was posters up to making people sort of persuading people to join in the army. PALS battalions, we've went through that already. Conscription, we've went through that already. I've got DORA 40B here. The first drug laws restricted the sale of cocaine and opium. Ministry of Food had campaigns, grow your own campaigns, just trying to organise, make sure everybody's got enough. Then later on in the war, rationing is introduced, which we've just put there. So I'm not going to go through all these at length, because we know a lot of them, and if you don't know them, you can get online and ask me a question or do a bit of research yourself. Why did the Schlieffen Plan fail? The Schlieffen Plan was the German plan to the very beginning of the war to avoid a war on both fronts, avoid fighting Britain and France in the west and Russia to the east. So why did it fail? Well, the French railways, the Germans underestimated how quickly the French could move troops to the front and manoeuvre their troops about, because the Germans tried to trick the French into thinking they were going to attack in a different place, but the railways meant that they could move their troops to the place that the Germans were attacking very quickly. The Belgian resistance delayed the Germans for 1 month. The Germans weren't expecting the Germans weren't expecting the Belgians to put up such a good fight. The British Expeditionary Force, the BEF, the effectiveness of it, they managed to delay the Germans long enough for French and British reinforcements to arrive. And the speed of the Russian mobilisation, they weren't expecting what they called the Great Bear. They weren't expecting them to be able to mobilise their army quite so quickly. Conditions in the trenches, I'm not going to go on at this at length because you've done this quite a bit, but you can note this down. You can talk about how trench fever, the rationing, you can talk about the horrible rats, the waterlogged conditions, how that also led to trench foot, how you can talk about shell shock, and obviously the mud. I mean, there's loads of stuff there you guys can talk about. Obviously you need to develop each point and explain how, you know, that made life horrible for soldiers in the trenches. Okay, coming to the Germany topic. 8th of November 1923, the Munich beer hall putsch, so-called beer hall putsch because it was in a beer hall, like a pub that had started. There's an attempt by the Nazis to gain power by force. Hitler interrupted a meeting in the beer hall of leading politicians in general. He ordered 3 men into a room, then emerged, giving the impression that they all supported him. However, there was Nazis fighting German troops elsewhere in Munich, and at that point the 3 men used the opportunity to escape. You'll remember in the video when they come up to Ludendorff and say, "Oh, can we go and check on our wives?" and Ludendorff says, "Yes, on you go." Obviously Hitler was enraged about that. With it kind of falling apart a little bit, with them 3 escaping, etc., Hitler and his Nazi supporters decided they were going to march into the centre of the town, but when they got there they were attacked by the German troops, and the thing was broken up, the revolution failed. Hitler was found guilty of treason, but he was only sentenced to 5 years. Previously, under the Spartacist Revolution, they were sentenced to death. So a bit of a difference there. Sentenced for 5 years, but in effect, he served less than a year. So lastly, Nazis and, not lastly, I think we're almost there, Nazis and education. The Nazis and education. Hitler said, "You may disagree with me, but your children are already mine." By this, he was meaning, I'm going to have your children, so they're going to believe sort of Nazi ideals, so it doesn't really matter what you as an adult thinks, because we're going to get them in the schools. So it emphasised the importance of Germany and German people, the idea that these are the Aryan race and the master race. It taught that other races were inferior. Subjects were changed to support Nazi ideas. So, for instance, in maths, there were problems about the number of bombs needed to hit targets, what percentage would be needed, and all this sort of stuff. And the children were also indoctrinated to love their Führer, i.e., they were sort of brainwashed to love the Führer. So that's it, finished. If you've copied all that down and you go through that over and over and over, so you know you can write on each point, then you should get a good mark in your prelim or whatever exam it is. Okay. Thanks.